My name is John Mitchell, and I'm a 35-year-old software developer living in the Chicago suburb of Winnetka with my wife, Olivia. At least she was my wife until a few months ago when my entire world collapsed. Things were never easy for us financially. Coding paid the bills fine, but didn't exactly lead to lavish living. Meanwhile, Olivia's marketing manager role had her rubbing shoulders with higher-ups at swanky corporate events and outlets malls all the time. I could sense her growing resentment as her career took off while I stayed a run-of-the-mill cubicle jockey. We made it work though, or so I thought. Celebrated 10 years of marriage back in August with a little weekend getaway to Lake Geneva. Laughed about how broke we were those first couple years out of college, but getting by together on love. Truly believed our relationship could power through anything as long as we were a team. Boy, was I naive. The signs were all there. I just didn't want to face them. The longer hours Olivia started putting in, the new designer wardrobes and expensive gym memberships, the way she started gasping in shock at some of my thriftier lifestyle choices. A guy as simple as me just figured those were the natural luxuries that came with hard work and promotions. But I probably should have wised up when she started getting secretive about her phone and laptop activity. See, what an absolute rube like me didn't realize was that Olivia had been cheating. Not just random flings either. She was having a full-blown affair with some high-rolling CEO scumbag named David. A guy who could shower her with penthouse reservations and first-class flights on a whim. I found out in probably the most painful way too. Showing up to her office for a surprise lunch date, roses in hand like an idiot, only to catch them swapping bath milk through the window shades. There was no mistaking the passion and intimacy between them. In an instant, my whole reality shattered into a million pieces. Looking back now, I can't even put into words how emasculated I felt. Like even with a decade plus of being Olivia's best friend, confidant, and lover, I was somehow never enough for her. That thirst to live out her Kardashian daydreams outweighed the wholesome life we spent years building together. What an absolutely devastating realization that the woman you've hitched your whole world to never felt fulfilled. Yeah, that heartbreak damn near crushed me. But I'd be lying if I didn't admit to some anger and humiliation too. You know, like this whole time I depended on Olivia, she was secretly shacking up and mocking me behind my back. Made me question everything we stood for and every memory we shared. In hindsight though, her infidelity was probably inevitable. Money strains and discontents had steadily been driving a wedge between us for years. I'm a pragmatist and savor life's simpler blessings, while her motivations became increasingly toxic and materialistic over time. Our cores simply stopped aligning. So while the betrayal gutted me emotionally, it also served as a cold awakening. A realization that I had been living a lie by convincing myself I could make Olivia happy. We wanted completely different paths forward, and there was no compromising that divide. Not after she stained our marriage vows with her selfish indulgences. As the dust settles today, I've had to do a lot of brutally honest self-reflection, confront my shortcomings in keeping Olivia fulfilled, while also recognizing her personal flaws that enabled the betrayal. Most important though, I'm focused on rediscovering my intrinsic self-worth as a person, not just as someone's husband or broke code monkey. It's the only way I'll ever be able to open my heart again without carrying buckets of resentment. I've got a long road of healing ahead, but I try to take solace in the wisdom learned here, that being wealthy in love and respect for your partner is what matters most, not private jets or rands with smarmy trust funders. This fateful chapter closing was excruciating, but it's also granting me an opportunity to reset my priorities and aspire for the life I truly want deep down. After that fateful day of catching Olivia and David together, I knew I had to confront her about the affair head-on. No more avoiding the obvious, painfully evident cracks in our relationship. I waited until that evening when she came strolling through the door, hair tousled and lips still smeared with David's kiss. She barely flinched seeing me sitting on the couch, stone-faced. "We need to talk," I stated bluntly. Olivia sighed deeply, hanging her head low. "You know, don't you?" I shook my head in disbelief. "How could you, Olivia? After everything we've been through." I could feel my hurt and anger welling up. Was I really that terrible of a husband that you'd just throw away over a decade of marriage behind my back like that? For some smarmy rich douchebag? "Don't play dumb, John," she retorted coldly. "You've been dragging me down for years with your lackadaisical career and comfort with penny-pinching every little thing. I've outgrown that kind of life. I won't settle for anything less than I deserve." Her brazenness stunned me. This wasn't the sweet, grounded woman I fell in love with all those years ago, just dripping with contempt and overinflated self-entitlement, justifying her betrayal every selfish way possible. "So what? You're telling me you cheated and tortured me emotionally for over a year because I work a normal job and believe in budgeting?" I shot back, tears welling up. "My commitment and love for you just meant nothing." Olivia rolled her eyes. "Don't be so dramatic. David excites and challenges me in ways you never could, John. He has ambition, status, a fat wallet to support the lavish lifestyle I crave. What can Mr. Software Developer offer me outside of more suburban boredom?" I could feel my heart shattering into pieces all over again hearing those venom-laced words. The woman I sacrificed everything for mocked and devalued me in the cruelest way possible, made me feel so utterly worthless and insignificant. "You're right, Olivia. I can't offer you private jets or vacation homes," I growled, fists clenched tightly. "But I could offer you something even billionaires like David could never buy. Unconditional friendship and love. Something you clearly didn't deserve or value at all." With that, I stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind me. I spent the whole night angrily pacing around, alternating between holding back tears and screaming obscenities about that soulless woman into my pillow. How did I let our sacred union and shared dreams deteriorate to this sort of malicious, toxic point? Truth is, I've always knew money worries created strains between us. And yeah, Olivia always had a taste for life's finer luxuries that we could rarely afford. But never, not once during our marriage, did I ever imagine she would so carelessly betray my trust and discard the resilient bond of love we built together from scratch out of selfish, shallow greed. I realized then that I deserved so much better than the way she made me feel insignificant, that no amount of wealth and status could ever make up for her lack of basic human decency and loyalty. The harsh reality was the faithful, adoring partner I thought I had tragically stopped existing long ago. Over the days that followed, despite pleading and bargaining, could see in Olivia's empty eyes that our marriage was already over. There was no remorse in her, only contempt and insecurity fueling her obsession with living large. An obsession I could never satisfy no matter how hard I tried. The decision was made. We were getting divorced. As excruciating as it felt to leave behind my lifelong companion over something so avoidable and unnecessary, I knew I had to, for my own self-preservation if nothing else. The well had been irreversibly poisoned. Now came the emotionally brutal process of separating our lives, assets and shared history. Watching Olivia take special delight in flaunting her torrid love affair with that silver-haired sleazeball, David was like repeatedly ripping my heart out of my chest day after day. This was the harsh, traumatic price I was paying for her selfishness, avarice and indiscretions. I felt so small, cheated and devalued. The separation and divorce process was by far the most agonizing period of my life. Watching the woman I once naively trusted with every fiber of my being revel in throwing away over a decade of marriage was absolutely soul-crushing. Dividing up all our possessions and lived-in memories felt like this long, drawn-out punishment. Every sentimental photo or memento we came across, Olivia would sneer and make some snide comment about how that artifact represented my boring, cheap life she had outgrown. "Do you want to keep this worn-out couch you loved so much?" she mocked one day as the movers packed up her things. "Maybe it can help remind you of the passionless, unfulfilling existence I've been trapped in all these years." Just gritted my teeth and stayed silent. As much as I wanted to unload on her about what a selfish, disloyal snake she had become, I knew there was no point. Olivia was so intoxicated by her new lifestyle of luxury and being some rich man's trophy that she had completely checked out of our marriage emotionally. Engaging would just be letting her chip away at my dignity more. The nights were the hardest. Lying in our bed alone, mind racing over all the wonderful times and loving moments we once shared and cherished as husband and wife. How did we let petty superficialities like money and status completely derail what was once such a pure, indestructible bond? I'd be lying if I didn't admit to ample moments of anger and resentment too, though. So many sleepless hours replaying that horrific afternoon. I caught her cheating over and over, hitting infinite ruins on David, shoving his slimy tongue down my wife's throat. The searing disrespect and disregard she treated me with right to my face when I confronted her afterwards. Like I meant less than nothing. As if going through that emotional torture wasn't agonizing enough, Olivia made sure to flaunt her new pampered existence with David every chance she got, calling just to brag about being whisked away to Santa Barbara for the weekend or having box seats to some exclusive gala, her words always dripping with condescension. "I hope you're enjoying those hot pockets in World of Warcraft this weekend, Johnny boy," she jeered after one trip. "The rest of us live in the real world where hard work gets properly rewarded." I finally reached my breaking point a few weeks later when Olivia showed up unannounced, still in her sundress from David's cabin, saying she was there to pick up the last of her things. I had been in the middle of watching a movie, barely eating or sleeping. "Well, if it isn't Mr. Ambitionless himself," she snarked as I opened the door, looking me up and down like a piece of trash. "Hard at work on those top-tier coding projects for the 1%. I see." I could no longer hold back my fury. "You think this is all just some big joke, don't you, Liv? Like you're Elios from the Baccarat, calling all the shots and treating me like some pathetic loser you get to laugh at from your pedestal." Olivia rolled her eyes. "Maybe if you would have applied yourself all those years instead of being so unmotivated and complacent, you could have been." "Could have been what?" I shot back, cutting her off. "Someone who cheated on his wife behind her back with a sugar daddy creep. Who cared more about accumulating wealth and prestige than keeping his wedding vows and staying faithful." That seemed to strike a nerve. Her face flushed red with anger at being called out. "You know what, John? You're just petty and jealous of the life I've created for myself after wasting the better part of my 30s as your empty little Hausfrau. Unlike you, I actually want to be someone, not just aimlessly exist taking up space." I stood there utterly stunned at the depravity behind those words. This woman I had loved and cherished for over 10 years saw me as nothing more than worthless scum holding her back from her bourgeois ambitions. A disposable hassle to snuff out once she found her ticket to a more lucrative identity. Truly didn't even recognize the person coldly berating me any longer. In that moment, I realized I had been lying to myself for a very long time by convincing that Olivia still had any remnants of the compassionate, caring woman I originally fell for inside her. That had all rotted away. leaving only this bitter, materialistic shell of a human being obsessing over acquiring more empty trophies and status symbols to purchase self-worth. Our relationship, while flawed, had truly meant less than nothing to her after all. So I calmly walked over, opened the front door, and gestured towards the driveway. "You know what, Olivia? I'm done with this. Get your shit and get out of my house. Out of my life. You're right, I'm not the soulless social climber like you. But at least I'll never have to stare in the mirror and see a disloyal, money-grubbing piece of garbage looking back at me like you will every day. Have a great life with David." Without another word, Olivia stormed out, shoving me aside roughly. As the door slammed, I felt this huge anvil of sadness and disbelief finally just drop, like coming out of some trance that had kept me irrationally hoping the cruel, heartless succubus that replaced my wife might one day have a change of heart and find her way back to me, back to the future we were supposed to grow old together sharing. Instead, that future was dead, more pointlessly killed by Olivia's ravenous id and insatiable thirst for overcompensating through disgusting excess and ego-stroking. I grieve that loss, sure, but more than anything, I grieve the complete loss of respect I now had for the woman I once couldn't have loved or idolized more. In the months after kicking Olivia out of my life for good, I'll admit I fell into a pretty dark, jaded place. Looking back though, I realize a lot of that pain and cynicism stemmed from feeling so utterly worthless and discarded. Like I had amounted to nothing as a husband and life partner after over a decade of sacrifice and commitment. Olivia's cruel parting shots about me being some unmotivated, insignificant loser really did a number on my self-esteem and sense of identity. Here I had given my all to making her happy, only to have my entire being devalued as an impediment to her selfish ambitions. It bred a lot of unhealthy, intrusive thought patterns that I'm still working through. Like, I know I'm just a normal coding grunt without any delusions of grandeur, but did being a solid, dependable, dedicated partner really make me such a disappointment and source of resentment deserving of absolute betrayal? Should I have pursued some high-octane career that could satisfy Olivia's incessant appetite for luxury and social climbing at all costs? Or was I always just doomed to exist as an inadequate, supper option destined to be cheated on and traded in for a richer model by my own wife? Super messed up to let someone else's toxic value system make you question your fundamental self-worth as a person. I know. But that's just how mentally and emotionally crippled I became after getting kicked in the teeth so brutally. I'm not proud of the spells of depression, nor the drunken self-pity parties I'd throw while binge-watching TV alone. Just a sad, pathetic iteration of myself that no one deserves to experience. Fortunately, this amazing new girl Sarah had started working at my company's gym around that time, and her positive energy was honestly one of the few bright spots that slowly helped recalibrate my spirits. She was just unapologetically happy all the time, you know. Despite dealing with her own tragic BS, Sarah had also recently gone through an awful breakup with a longtime boyfriend who cheated on her with some skanky coworker. I'll never forget this one conversation we had at the juice bar after a workout. Sarah had been going on about the importance of showing compassion instead of endless bitterness towards your exes. "Look, John, I get it. Betrayal absolutely sucks. Having your trust and vulnerability punished so maliciously is one of the most painful things a person can go through," she said. "But at some point, you have to ask yourself whether holding on to that rage and resentment is actually preventing you from healing and moving forward, or just giving your ex still more power over your happiness." I thought about that for a long while. As justified as my anger towards Olivia felt, Sarah was right. Letting myself stay consumed with hatred and sadness over her cruelty was only compounding my trauma. It allowed her selfish actions to keep robbing me of inner peace and optimism. Months later, "You're absolutely right, Sarah. Thanks for that pep talk. I'm doing myself no favors by letting Olivia continue wounding my self-confidence and clouding my judgment," I admitted. "Just gotta get out of my own damn way sometimes, you know. Maybe then I can rediscover the person I was before her betrayal turned my world upside down." Sarah just smiled kindly. "That's the spirit, John. Be that person again. The caring, fun-loving guy who lights up any room just by being himself. Why should your ex's insecurities and hang-ups determine your self-worth when you clearly have so much to offer?" That conversation stuck with me over the ensuing weeks and months. Each day, I tried refocusing on rediscovering parts of myself that had gotten buried by the trauma. My intellectual curiosities and passions, the confidence in my stable career capabilities, the dedicated friend and family member who invests in others. All the substance that gave me foundational identity beyond just being someone's husband. And you know what? It started working. The rage dissipated, and I stopped lashing out rashly just to make myself feel temporarily empowered. Self-care became paramount, both mentally through meditation/journaling, but also physically by sticking to healthy routines at the gym. Basically, doing the unglamorous but vital inner work to heal properly. I'd be lying if I said thoughts of Olivia never crept back in and threatened to reopen old wounds. Like this one particular evening when Sarah and I were grabbing dinner at this chill burger spot, just having a blast riffing on bad movies and pop culture. Out of nowhere, I caught a fleeting glimpse of Olivia strutting by outside with David and some snooty friends. She looked vacant, hollow, even despite reveling in the lavish trappings she once coveted so perversely. For a split second, I found myself wondering if she ever experienced contentment or happiness like the kind Sarah and I were enjoying through such simple pleasures and human connections. If she ever stopped and realized the vapidness of her pursuits, how unfulfilled her existence truly was once the thrill of conquest wore off. I quickly snapped out of that line of thinking, though. Olivia made her selfish bed a long time ago, and now she gets to lie in it perpetually. I rationalized. No amount of imagined wealth or social status could ever insulate her from the self-inflicted anguish of discarding real love and human decency for such craven reasons. Actually felt more pity than anything. That burger outing was sort of a poignant turning point, though. From then on, every time Olivia did randomly cross my mind, I pushed those thoughts aside and redirected my focus to the awesome people and experiences currently lighting up my life. More soul-nurturing conversations and bonding with Sarah over our shared perspectives. Reinvesting in hobbies and creative outlets I had neglected for too long. Just being unabashedly present. I won't lie, it's been an arduous journey of overcoming resentment, bitterness, and crushed self-confidence to arrive at this point of relative normalcy again. And yeah, I'm sure the scars of that trauma will always linger a little, even once fully healed. But by prioritizing my own value and living authentically, I've been able to regain my identity and self-esteem wholly apart from past failures or others' hatred. I'm proud of the personal growth too. Of not succumbing to Olivia's patterns of hatred and selfishness, despite how tantalizing vindictiveness can feel when you've been so wronged. Accepting my humanity and imperfections has been so liberating. And you know what? As painful as that experience was, I actually think it's afforded me deeper wisdom and resilience that will make me an infinitely better partner whenever I do find my person. It's been over 2 years since that fateful day I caught Olivia cheating, and our world came crashing down. 2 years of intense anguish, self-doubt, anger, but ultimately healing and reclaiming my sense of self-worth. I'd be lying if I said the scars and emotional wounds from her betrayal have fully abated. Things like that leave an indelible mark on your psyche. Reminders can still crop up unexpectedly, like when a particular song or scent sparks visceral memories of happier times that quickly curdle into bitter resentments. My ability to trust without restraint or abandon myself wholeheartedly to someone new has been severely compromised, to put it mildly. But you know what? I'm actually okay with that lingering hint of guardedness now. Not because I revel in feeling cynical or jaded. Quite the opposite, really. Having endured such an emotional holocaust and risen above just makes me appreciate the resilience of the human spirit that much more. Yeah, Olivia irreparably shattered the sanctity of our marriage vows and betrayed my trust in the most devastating way imaginable. She berated and belittled me after over a decade of commitment, robbing me of so much dignity and confidence in the process. An injustice like that really does have the power to break someone's entire reality into a million jagged shards. Yet here I am, steadily reconstructing myself into an even stronger, more self-assured version. Grateful for the wisdom earned in rising above the hurt and refusing to let another person's toxicity permanently cloud my sense of identity and intrinsic self-worth. Genuinely appreciating the simpler elements of life that promote inner fulfillment, like nurturing meaningful connections with quality people devoid of pretense or status seeking. My bonds with awesome individuals like Sarah, people who have shown me the power of compassion, empathy, and staying unshakably grounded, have been so vital and rewarding throughout this healing journey, just organically bonding over the uncustomizable yet ultimately more profound shared human experiences that truly engender joy and purpose. Not these impermanent trophy cases or diluted obsessions with rampant consumption and conquests that clearly brought Olivia no lasting peace or enlightenment. Does that make me unmotivated or lacking ambition because I find fulfillment in more modest terms? Of course not. If anything, rising above the existential gut punch of betrayal to stay true to my values and principles is one of the most heroically resilient acts a person can undertake. Regaining my confidence and appreciating my capabilities and talents wholly separated from someone else's vain, materialistic value system. I'd be lying if I said the anger towards Olivia has completely dissipated. That humiliation and sense of being cheated still sparks white-hot resentment from time to time, as irrational as holding grudges may be. More than anything, though, I feel an immense sadness for how disabled and handicapped she has become in her endless pursuit of emptiness. As I now view it, the desperation to keep accumulating wealth and status credentials at the expense of authentic joy and human decency. Maybe it stems from some deep, unresolved insecurity or self-loathing. Maybe it's just good old-fashioned greed. Whatever the root cause, it's clear Olivia has completely lost perspective, sacrificing the potential for an enriching life actually worth living built on reciprocated love and personal growth. Genuinely hope she's able to eventually find her way back to cultivating substance over these hollow, vapid addictions to social climbing, to stop endlessly searching for happiness in the empty calorie highs of scoring new Birkin bags or having brunch at the latest chic hotspot, to stop defining herself entirely through the distorted lens of a wealthy benefactor's infatuation before the music inevitably stops. But I've accepted that Olivia rediscovering her purpose is a personal journey entirely out of my control at this point. Just like my own path forward and striving to be the best version of myself has become. All I can do is continue nurturing self-compassion and living with integrity, leading by the example I wish she could appreciate. And you know what? Progress is being made, even if slowly. After that excruciating initiation by Soulfire, I'm finally learning to stop continuously auditing and questioning my self-worth, to quit anxiously second-guessing everything from my fundamental values down to banal Netflix picks over whether they're frivolous or short-sighted enough to breed resentment. In many ways, Extracting the malignant presence of Olivia's toxic value system from my mind has allowed me to appreciate the understated joys of life more wholeheartedly than ever before. To be unabashedly present when listening to my favorite album, or walking outside during that first warm day after a harsh Chicago winter, and just inhaling the possibilities of renewal in the air, not weighed down by fears of appearing basic. More than just being free to enjoy these simple pleasures, though, I realize all my experiences, even the brutally traumatic ones, have awarded me an incredible blessing of clarity and wisdom about what truly matters most in life. I don't need to chase elite prestigious careers or accumulate fancy trappings that scream status and excess to find valid purpose. No, living with authenticity, forming human bonds enriched by vulnerability, and nurturing my own intellectual curiosities and creative passions is more than enough to wake up every morning feeling genuinely fulfilled. Add in prioritizing mental health, spirituality, and basic human decency as cherished values rather than impediments to shed. That's the recipe for forging a life I can be proud of. One exempt from status anxiety and bitter rivalry with others, stemming from a true place of grounded inner peace and earned self-confidence. So yeah, Olivia's affair and betrayal absolutely decimated me for a long stretch thereafter it happened. But in many ways, being forced to hit absolute rock bottom allowed me to slowly rebuild a truer, more empowered version of myself aligned with authenticity rather than others' vapid, conditional approval. Not a bad awakening. All things considered, even with the scars that may never fully fade. I'm in a much better place of wholeness these days, healthfully redirecting my energy into reinvesting in passions and humans who actually reciprocate appreciation. There's a cheesy quote I try to remind myself of whenever I start dwelling on the past too much and feeling resentful. I survived because the fire inside me burned brighter than the fire around me. Trite as it sounds, there's some real poetry to finding your inner strength and identity isn't extinguished even after enduring the most traumatic betrayals or personal infernos. That our circumstances never have to predetermine our self-worth or dictate the boundaries of what we're capable of achieving through enough resilience. So if I can take anything from this brutal experience and pass along as a final wisdom nugget, it's to stay fiercely committed to living authentically rather than letting others' toxicity and hang-ups permanently hijack your identity. Prioritize self-compassion and quiet confidence rather than material success or status grabbing as measurements for your self-worth. Don't let societal programming or fear of judgment dissuade you from simply pursuing fulfillment in your own earnest, idiosyncratic way. Numbing yourself to deeper joys or tempering your own journey through self-expression for others is perhaps the biggest tragedy, because in the end, it's those intimate, impermanent human experiences and personal evolutions that comprise the bulk of any life well lived. So those are the biggest takeaways and message I wanted to share through my story. One of absolute devastation and heartbreak gradually transitioning into profound renewal, healing, and growth. We all face seemingly insurmountable obstacles on this journey of existence, betrayals that can shake our entire reality. What defines us most is possessing the resilience and resolve to constructively work through that anguish and emerge more grounded in authenticity than ever before. The fire alchemy of going through my own personal hell and choosing to burn away the toxicity rather than let it consume me entirely has been grueling. But I've emerged from those searing flames finally appreciating the purpose in forging an identity rooted in my strengths and values, wholly separated from anyone else's conditions or judgment. Wish me continued luck on this path of actualization. More importantly, though, I hope my perspective and vulnerability here resonates and provides value to anyone else working through their own identity fires and trying times. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel, give us a like, share our story. See you all soon.